Hi guys, I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about morality, because morality is something people will frequently appeal to when trying to argue against God. They will cite certain morally evil things that have happened in the world and try to use that as evidence for the non-existence of God. They will say, well, how can God exist if there's so much evil in the world? Now, the problem with that is if there is no God, there is no evil. What do I mean by that? When somebody says that something is evil, they also assume that there is something good in the world. Now, if you assume that there is good and there is evil, there is right and there is wrong, you're also assuming that there's an objective moral law, an objective standard of moral laws and principles which you are appealing to in order to differentiate between good and bad. In order to say that one thing is right and one thing is wrong, there must be a scale, there must be a standard. Now, if there is a standard of moral laws which you're appealing to, then you must posit a moral lawgiver. Laws don't exist without lawgivers. So there's a transcendent, objective moral lawgiver. That's exactly who you're trying to argue against, not for. Because if there is no God, then there is no moral lawgiver. If there is no moral lawgiver, there are no moral laws. If there are no moral laws, there's no right. If there's no right, there's no wrong. There's no good, there's no evil. So you started your argument by saying there's so much evil in the world, therefore God doesn't exist. But the fact that you know and recognize that certain things are evil proves God does exist, because if there is no God, if your atheism is true, there's no right and wrong. Why? Because what does atheism teach? Atheism teaches that human beings are nothing more than the after effect of billions of years of unguided random evolution. There was a Big Bang explosion, and stardust condensed into planet Earth, and random non-living chemicals came together to form the first life form, which over billions of years evolved into human beings. So ultimately, we are nothing more than the end result of billions of years of random, unguided evolution. We're nothing more than bags of cells. We're nothing more than rearranged stardust. So why would killing stardust be wrong? Why would killing a bag of cells be wrong? You see, in atheism, you have no grounds to say anything is right or wrong. There is no good or evil in atheism. However, the existence of evil in the world is perfectly consistent with my Christian worldview. In fact, the Bible tells us that God has written his law on our hearts. The Bible gives us that sense and that standard of morality. In fact, the Bible tells us that we live in a fallen world because sin brought death into the world. And ever since then, we've lived in a fallen world where there is evil in the world, yes, but the existence of evil is perfectly consistent within my Christian worldview. However, you trying to use evil as an argument against God as an atheist is completely inconsistent. It's logically incoherent. There is no right and wrong within atheism. We're all just bags of cells. We're all just molecules in motion. All the thoughts in your head, all the preferences in your mind are completely irrelevant. We're all just particles bumping into each other. Now, because of this dilemma, certain atheists posit different grounds for where we get morality outside of God. People often say that morality is an invention of society, but to that I would say, which society? This quickly breaks down when you think about certain examples. If morality was an invention of society, then everything that Stalin did, everything the Nazis did, everything a cannibalistic tribe does, none of those things are wrong, because all the actions undertaken by the people within those societies were deemed to be right by society. Therefore, what they were doing was right. It was good, according to the society. Also, take, for example, the people that wanted to end slavery. Society as a whole had deemed slavery to be a good thing. So then the people within society that wanted to end slavery were the immoral ones, because they were acting against the moral standard which society had placed upon them. You see, it quickly breaks down, because also I would say, which society are you appealing to? Is it our society? If so, if you say society created morality, I would ask you then, is our society perfect? Is our society morally perfect? And if you say no, then once again, you find yourself appealing to an objective sense of morality from outside of society in order to determine that our society is not perfect and could be better. If you think our society could be better, again, you're appealing to an objective sense of morality found outside of society, not within society. People will then posit, invention of morality as the grounds for morality. They'll say that human beings invented a certain moral code in order to propagate humanity so that we don't just die off. But the problem with this is that you automatically assume that the propagation of humanity is a good thing. And then what you're doing is you're saying, well, anything that propagates it is good, anything that kills humanity is bad. But you've already tried to shoehorn morality in there right at the beginning with no grounds. In atheism, why is the propagation and preservation of humanity a good thing? Why is it right to do that? We're all just random bags of rearranged cells and stardust. Why should we be preserved? Why is it good to do that? Again, that's just subjective. That's not objective morality. What we find in human experience is that we all have an ingrained sense of objective morality where we know right from wrong. We see this across all different cultures, across all different societies, and we all exhibit very similar moral laws and moral standards. From the most advanced societies to the most primitive societies, all have laws protecting human life. All have rules governing marriage and the family relationships. All condemn stealing, and all encourage doing good to others. So we see vast similarities across different societies, across different cultures, without those cultures even having met one another. They still exhibit very similar moral codes and moral standards. Why is that? That's because human beings were made in the image of God. We know that human life is valuable and it should be preserved, and we should be good to other people, and we shouldn't do wrong to other people. Why is it that when you watch a lion killing a gazelle on National Geographic, you don't say, wow, that is a truly moral evil? You say, well, that's just nature. They're just animals. They're behaving like animals. But then on the other hand, you're going to say human beings are just highly evolved animals. But when a human being kills another human being, that's a moral evil. Why is that? That's because you know that we're not simply animals. We're higher than that because we've been made uniquely in the image of God. So any appeal you make to morality in order to argue against God, in fact, does the complete opposite. You've just shown me that you are aware of your innate, God-given, ingrained sense of morality, and you're trying to use it to argue against God. Basically, what you're doing at the end of the day is you're stealing morality from God in order to argue against him.